Om, 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 om. First, I'd like to say that since there's only one divine consciousness, there's one cosmic conscious mind, and there are a dozen cosmic conscious minds. There's one supreme cosmic mind, and that light of consciousness is the same light of consciousness that is shining through everybody. Oriental, Occidental, black, white, brown, yellow, red. And I think I said it before, but it's the same mind looking out from an Oriental that's at the Occidental. It's the same mind that's looking out from the Occidental into the Oriental. It's the same mind in the colored man, meaning all the colored races, that's in the white race. And knowing there's only one consciousness, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that it's the same cosmic conscious, God conscious, Shiva conscious, Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness, Moses consciousness. Oh yes, there is a Moses consciousness too. Just like there's a Krishna consciousness for Lord Krishna, and there's a Christ consciousness for Yogi Jesus the Christ. There's also a Moses consciousness, which is the Jewish called cosmic consciousness. And that is to say, all these consciousnesses are just different names for the same thing. So when you're saying Buddha consciousness, or Moses consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, you're saying the same cosmic conscious mind. And since there's only one cosmic conscious mind, then that means that it's the same being who's shining through every body. And if it's the same being shining through every body, then it's what is known as the Self, capital S, the Supreme Self, the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, which is shining through all these Atmas, or souls. And so essentially, it's the same being in every body. It's the same being. It's the same God conscious mind. It's the same Buddha consciousness. It's the same Christ consciousness. And so it's very simple. And the greatest things are very simple. And God is not complicated. He created the whole universe out of one thing, energy consciousness. And that energy consciousness, the supreme genius, the simplicity of genius, the supreme genius, created the whole universe out of just one thing, energy consciousness. And as this energy consciousness vibrates at different frequencies, different rates, it gives the illusion, it appears to be different things: gold, copper, wood, flesh, blood, bone, air, selenium, coal. This is all essentially the same thing, energy consciousness, which entails the atoms, the molecules, the positrons, the protons, the electrons, the muons, and so forth and so on. It's all the same thing, energy consciousness vibrating at different rates. and all those different rates, it gives the appearance of being different things, but it's nothing but the same energy consciousness. And so no matter how you cut the sandwich, you always wind up with the same thing. There's one all-pervading essence, supreme consciousness, Shiva consciousness, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Moses consciousness. You're saying the same thing, don't fight and hurt and kill one another, which you've been doing for thousands of years now. It's time to stop and to wake up. And to wake up, it brings us into another subject. And the fact is, everybody is asleep, except someone who is awake. That is to say, a jiva mukta, or a liberated soul, someone who has attained realization, he's awake. Everybody else is unawake. And if everybody else is unawake, then they're asleep. And if you're asleep, you're not conscious. And like I said before, the mass of mankind is asleep and unconscious. And from that equation, we can understand why the world is in the condition like it is now. Like the great Shivananda from Rishikesh said, and he was a very positive, joyful, loving, non-negative person of any person. And he himself said, misery, misery, misery everywhere. Find God and go beyond the misery. And why is there misery, misery, misery everywhere? Because we haven't found God, which is another name for the self, what dwells within our own self. There is no other God but the God that's dwelling within our own self. If you go out looking for God, and then you will travel forever, and you will never find an ending to it. You go out into the universe, and the universe they've already figured out. Light beings have traveled millions, billions of years from the past, and still the universe goes on and on and on. And what is it? It's the cosmic dream of God, or a lucid dream. It's a lucid dream. This life is really a lucid dream. We're really dreaming it. We're really dreaming it. And so the reason why there's so much disarray and suffering in the world is because people are asleep and unconscious. They're not awake. And if they're not awake, then you can't do things the way they're supposed to be done, which is to say, practice ahimsa, or nonviolence. Don't do anything to hurt anyone, which is the highest religion. And we're always talking about religion and God, and yet we're always hurting, persecuting, oppressing, and killing people. And so, in spite of our words, we're not practicing what we're saying. First, to solve all of our problems, we have to wake up. And the only way you're going to wake up and to find God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, I said there's no God out there. What you call the God out there is the illusionary matter, the dream matter of God. And when he breathes in, it disappears. And he breathes out, the universe is recreated again. It doesn't really exist. It's born in time, it dies in time. So it's not permanent. Only God is permanent. He always existed and always will. He's never born, he will never die. But the universe is born in time, it dies in time. So it has a beginning and an end. It's not real, it's a dream. And so it's a kind of global schizophrenia. They talk about somebody who is ill in a hospital as being suffering from schizophrenia. They're also suffering from schizophrenia. The whole world is suffering from schizophrenia. That's why Albert Einstein said people are crazy. I want to dwell on negative things. And what is the reason and the cause for all that? Because man is living a dream. He's not awake. When he wakes up, he can see through all this stuff. And then he engages in rightful behavior, non-hurtful behavior. He doesn't engage in genocide. or any other kind of hurtfulness, because he's awake. And so the world has to wake up, and the first thing they have to do to wake up is stop hurting other people. Like Yogananda says, if you want people to be courteous to you, be courteous to them. If you want people to love you, love them. If you want people to respect you, first you have to respect them. And the way you behave toward other people, that's the way ultimately they're going to behave toward you. And if you do things, hurtfulness to other people, then you're going to reap, hurtfulness is going to come back to you. Because the money that you deal with is the change that you're going to get. And so, we all have to do good acts. You don't have to belong to some organized religion, because true religion is what's in your own self. The external religion is an aid to find yourself, which means within yourself. And we shouldn't do anything to stand between someone else and the sun or higher consciousness, and use our superior position to have authority over them. We should respect the God which is in everybody. Yogi Jesus the Christ himself said, people will say he's over there, God is here, he's over there, he's over there. He says, don't listen to any of them. And he said, no matter, and never mind what they say, watch what they do, and so forth and so on. So we're talking about, we're issuing these platitudes in all religions, in all of the religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and all the other religions, Jainism, and all the other religions. They're talking about, in essence, do not unto another that which is distasteful unto you. But if you look down through the corridors of history, you'll see that the mass of them are practicing just the opposite. This is my religion, don't do anything to hurt anybody. And yet we have the Crusades, and we have the Inquisitions, and we have all this other violence in the name of God, which is an oxymoron. It's the most ungodly, irreligious thing you could do. It's the most appalling thing you can do, is to hurt somebody and feel good about it. And so let us practice what we preach. Do not do unto another that which is distasteful unto you. And that'll really be a upheaval for all the religions of the world, and to let them take cognizance of their actions to make sure they're in accord with their words. And the only way you can do that is where we started out in the first place, is by waking up. The world is asleep, and it needs to wake up. And all this violence and war and suffering and gaining authority over others because we have a big bank account, and not treating them fairly because we got a big business and we got all kinds of money. That's the worst thing you can do. You should treat everybody as though they were a millionaire too, like an equal. Don't look down on somebody because they have $1 in their pocket and you have 500, because that, in essence, has nothing to do with the worth of the human being, not your bank account. There's nothing wrong with money, but use it according to Dharmic principles, not Adamic principles, where you use it to control and manipulate and take away the rights of other people. This is why we're having this spring all over the world, including here in the USA. People want to be truly free. They don't want to be manipulated by the high rollers and the big money boys. Every revolution that ever occurred down through history was because the ruling elite were eating all the cake for themselves, and they were not being fair and kindly to the poor and common folk. And eventually it leads to revolution, because the common folk are really in the majority. And when the common folk who want to have all their rights, like it's happening in the Middle East now, when they want to have their rights, it leads to they want their rights, they want to be free, and we're having the discord and the sacrifice and the suffering of the masses of humanity who want to throw the moneyed the high rollers having hegemony over their lives and not having freedom of expression and be able to buy the food they want to eat the food they want to eat and live the way they want to live. We have rules and regulations even to govern, to tell you what you can eat and what you can't eat, and what form of medical practice you can follow and what you can follow. I'm not pointing my finger at anyone specifically, but you can see and judge for yourself. This is this is where we've wound up. And the forefathers of this country said, when the government tells you what you can eat, I'm talking about all the governments of the world, not just here. When the government tells you what you can eat or drink or what have you, then you are living under a state of tyranny, the worst form of tyranny, which they themselves fought to get away from, to be free. And so we have to wake up and eliminate all of this nonsense, so we can live at peace. Because right now we have fences on all the borders and guards on all the borders, and the whole world has become like a jailhouse or a mental hospital. The world belongs to God and to all mankind, and it's tragic that we have to have special permission to go on somebody else's real estate, or they come over to our real estate. There are too many rules and regulations because man, not being awake, he forgot his true nature, and that all mankind are our brothers and sisters, and we shouldn't do anything to hurt anybody, no matter what their height or their weight, no matter where the shape of the hair or their eyes or the lips or the nose, no matter what color they are, no matter what height they are, no matter what race they are. They're all our brothers and sisters. Someone we love very much in some form of incarnation, and everything that lives is a kind of brother and sister. In closing, let me say, everything that lives is really very sacred. Only our senses are not fine-tuned enough to perceive it. See, everything is sacred. Even a person that does wrong, you can forgive them, but you can protect yourself. You have the right to protect yourself that he doesn't do it to you again. And you can recognize it as wrong, but you shouldn't have any hate for anybody. You do what's right, but you don't strike back unless it's a question of defending your country or life or something like that. Otherwise, if someone does something wrong to you, just forgive them and walk away. Forget about it. The laws of the universe, the Supreme Creator, will take care of him. And the minute you do anything wrong, the minute you lie, steal, kill, or do anything, you've done it to yourself first, rather than to someone else. We're all brothers and sisters, and keep cognizant of the divinity of all life, and we'll solve all the problems and suffering on earth by adopting the Divine Mother's principle of ahimsa, nonviolence. All mankind are children of the same mother and father. And thank you very much. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, Baba.